we are bringing you this particular article that we found online. It's quite an old article from around July 1979, and it reads, his name was up on the theatre marquee, big as life. His shoes and other memorabilia were in a glass display case, and 2,000 of his fans, many of them specially robed and belted, stood by quietly as a proclamation was read, making this his day. Bruce Lee, the face that launched 1,000 fists, had returned. This is not like the unretirement of George Jessel or Tony Orlando or some other celebrity who decided the public had been deprived of their presence long enough. Bruce Lee has not been brooding somewhere in plush seclusion. Bruce Lee has been dead for nearly 6 years at the time of this article. When he makes a new picture, titled appropriately enough Game of Death, that is some kind of event. Andre Morgan, line producer of Game of Death, was on the phone from Hong Kong at that point. The connection was weak, but the numbers were strong. The rare opening was huge, one of the biggest I've ever had, he said with satisfaction. It broke records in Sao Paulo, it was breaking records in Sao Paulo. Business was very good in Germany, and it was the number 5 grosser in Japan, earning $8 million. Not only had a dead man made a new film, the thing is earning a fortune. It is difficult to explain to non-initiates the singular drawing power of Bruce Lee. Calling him a martial artist is a bit like calling Proust a scribber. He was not of the genre, he defined and created it, combining startling yet graceful physical movements with an exceptional screen presence and charisma. It took Lee, the 1958 Cha-Cha King of Hong Kong, a former waiter in a Chinese restaurant in Seattle, USA, and a 4-F Army reject, less than 2 years to bounce from relative obscurity to a status as the hottest property in world cinema, capable of asking $1 million a picture. His last film, Enter the Dragon, has recorded worldwide box office earnings in excess of $100 million. As Esquire headlined in 1973, is not Warner Brothers ancient and wise? Is not Bruce Lee young and coming up fast? And then, on July 20, 1973, Lee went to the Hong Kong apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei. He complained of a headache, was given a prescription painkiller called Exploitation, went into the bedroom to rest and could not be wakened, and was rushed to a hospital where he died at 11:30 p.m. He was 32. The coroner's verdict was death by misadventure. The technical cause, acute cerebral edema, explained one doctor. His brain was swollen like a sponge. Given these circumstances, it was only natural that a cult should form around Bruce Lee. But what is surprising is that today, half a dozen years after his death, he is at the peak of his popularity. He still is. 3 or 4 times that dozen. The Bruce Lee International Fan Club claims an active membership of more than 10,000 and growing. Fighting Stars, a magazine centered around the tearful worship of the great man's exploits, comes out every other month, larded with letters like the following from a man in Detroit. I want all Bruce Lee fans to write, remember the great Bruce Lee, his spirit lives on. And we want all Bruce Lee fans to subscribe to our channel, to give us a like, add the comments below the video, and then share this particular video with all their family, friends and others. Now back to the article. Most durable have been the literally dozens of quickie, cheap films made with no relation to Bruce Lee, except the mercenary hope of cashing in on his reputation. The Black Dragon revenges the death of Bruce Lee, for example, just opened in London, where a critic called it the shoddiest and feeblest of all kung fu exploitation movies. Its distinctions include a plot without the least pretense to coherence. In addition, a recent issue, an issue of the Washington Post back then, carried ads for no less than 3 films eager to profit from his good name. Good Guys Wear Black, with lead actor Chuck Norris, promoted as He Fought to the Death with Bruce Lee, a film based on a script idea of Lee's, and advertised as Bruce Lee's Spirit Lives in Circle of Iron, as well as a more conventional, albeit ghoulish, Bruce Lee Fights Back from the Grave, and You Can't Keep a Good Man Down. As these feeble rip-offs proliferated, consider the plight of Raymond Chow, managing director of Hong Kong's Golden Harvest Group and the producer of many of Lee's films. Chow had in his possession sizable chunks of the very last Bruce Lee epic, the one he'd been working on at the time of his demise, or his death. Given all of the above, Chow knew that if he could turn it into a finished product, there would be no end to the money that could be made, but the nature of the footage shot seemed to make that hope an impossibility. The problem was that even Lee himself didn't know what Game of Death was supposed to be about. According to his wife Linda in her book, Bruce Lee, the Man Only I Knew, the closest he got to a plot was the idea of a treasure kept on the top floor of a pagoda in Korea. It was a pagoda where martial artists were trained, and each floor was devoted to training a different style of martial art. Naturally, Lee would end up triumphantly fighting his way to the top, but according to an associate, the filming of his progress was done in a rather haphazard way. When somebody he wanted to use showed up in Hong Kong, he'd hire him and shoot a sequence. In his way, fights with nunchaku expert Danny Santo, Korean 7th degree Hapkido Chi Hong Choi, and very tall martial arts devotee Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of the Los Angeles Lakers were filmed. After Lee's death, Chow's first thoughts, according to producer Andre Morgan, was to just shelve the film and forget about it. But exhibitors and distributors who were aware that the footage existed put a lot of pressure on him to do something. And in 1976, Chow finally relented and put together a think tank to try and come up with a usable plot. It was, remembers Morgan, an experience I don't wish on anyone, like working on a jigsaw puzzle backwards, starting in the middle and not in the four corners. We had to fight scenes. What we needed was a storyline to justify them. Every distributor in every territory in the world had a pet theory on what would work in his market. We got dozens of unsolicited scripts from people who hadn't even seen the footage. One had Bruce coming back from the dead, another had a younger brother taking over from him, a third had him fighting with the devil. You name it, we had it. It ran the whole gamut. It got a little aggravating at times. The final script, which went through 5 writers and 3 drafts, takes advantage of one of the many rumours surrounding Lee's death, that some kind of Chinese mafia put him out of commission. In Game of Death, star martial artist Billy Lowe is threatened by a nasty syndicate that apparently controls every sports and entertainment figure in the known world. Billy, being made of sterner stuff, decided to resist, proclaiming sturdily, "It is better to die a broken piece of jade than live a piece of clay." He is shot for his trouble, but though the syndicate thinks he has died, he in fact toughs it out and ends up fighting his way through the many stories of Hong Kong's Red Pepper restaurant, which has replaced the Korean pagoda, and wreaking vengeance on the by now snivelling syndicate boss, a delicious scenery chewing cameo by Academy Award winner Dean Jagger. The plot has its ingenious touches. Billy being shot, for instance, enables him to spend much of the film with his face either hidden by bandages or covered by disguises, but it wasn't ingenious enough to relieve Golden Harvest of its biggest worry: how to find a double for Bruce Lee. That was extremely difficult, says Morgan glumly. When Bruce died, we were literally inundated with photographs of lookalikes, but because of the time lag, people's faces changed, and they suddenly got bags in their eyes, everything. Finally, not 1 but 2 doubles were settled on. There was the fighting Bruce Lee, a Korean who was quite an action man but couldn't emote his way out of a rice sack. Joining him was the acting Bruce Lee, a Hong Kong resident who looked enough like the original to have met and shaken hands with him in a jokey Bruce meet Bruce meeting in a Hong Kong disco. Also to be located was someone to play the newly created role of Hero's girlfriend. Selected was Colleen Camp, a 26-year-old actress who had been charming and effective and smile and funny lady, and who was just coming off a tour of duty as a troupe entertained Playboy bunny in Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. She had been in the Philippines for 6 months, she stated. She was jungled out. Do you get the picture? And her agent says, "We've got this great role for you starring opposite Bruce Lee." "I thought he was dead," she said. And he says, "Yeah, exactly." She said, "Is this a publicity stunt or something? How can I play opposite a dead man? Can you imagine?" "Well," he says, "at least he won't upstage you." Her agent's insistence and the fact that she's got to sing the title song, it's #1 in Japan, helped Camp overcome her doubts, but now she has seen the finished product, she's not so sure about the wisdom of it all. The first words out of her mouth, she stated, "Let's go spaghetti tonight, I'm tired of Cantonese food." "Can you imagine?" she says in a breathless, non-stop way. "My dialogue is mostly me screaming, 'Billy, karate chop, Billy, karate chop, I'm going, Billy, how are we going to get out of this?' Like those things you see on bad soap operas. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but it's true." Aside from the cardboard nature of her I made love to a dead man role, Camp found the whole experience very weird. I mean, his name was on the call sheet, it said Bruce, and the 2 doubles looked so much like him it was frightening. There was a very eerie, mystical feeling to it. I'd ask questions about Bruce and everyone would be evasive. A lot of people in Hong Kong thought he was still alive. They said he knew he was getting too popular and he was pretending to be dead so he could rest. That kind of scared me, or scared her. Camp left Hong Kong at the end of the 10-week shooting with enough luggage to paralyse the horse, plus a greatly increased admiration for the talents of her deceased co-star. The guy is a brilliant talent, brilliant I tell you, she tells you. I think he is one of the most charismatic things ever seen on film. Do you know what I mean? He's a star, he's a big star. I was much more excited watching him than me. I was really turned on to the guy. Equally impressed by Lee was the man who directed him in Enter the Dragon and was everyone's inevitable choice to finish out Game of Death, Robert Clouse. He was not a great actor. He had a funny voice and an accent some people thought was humorous, but his screen presence was just tremendous. The director remembers. He could just stand there and stare. It was with such concentration you felt he could kill you just by staring. He came across like a bolt of electricity. Robert Clouse is a placid, relaxed man, 51, a pipe smoker who looks like he ought to be teaching English in a small New England conservatory. In 1970 he made a feature called Darker Than Amber, based on the Travis McGee detective series, and he says, amiably, I got typed right there as an action director, the poor man's pick apart. Bruce happened to see the film, liked what he saw, and said, that's the guy I want to direct Enter the Dragon. Clouse soon discovered that Lee was, in the words of his wife's biography, no plaster saint. He was high-strung, very much so, with an enormous ego, just enormous. Clouse remembers, shaking his head. He made a lot of enemies. He had many feuds in Hong Kong. He always thought people were out to get him. He wanted to impress everyone instantly. The first time he met you, you expect him to shake hands. But instead he steps back, flicks out his foot so fast you can feel the air move right at the tip of your nose. Then he'd take your hand and place it on his stomach. It was kind of his calling card. After that, you could go out to lunch with him, obviously. Clouse especially remembers the time Lee accidentally cut his hand in a screen fight with Bob Wall. Bruce got paranoid and told his buddies, at the end of our biggest fight scene, I am going to kill Bob Wall. Well, Clouse got a call from Raymond Chow in the middle of the night and he said, Bruce is going to kill Bob Wall, you have to call him and talk him out of it. So he called him up and he said yes, he was going to pile drive himself into Wall's chest and kill him. Finally, Clouse told him he couldn't do that he still needed Bob for some scenes here and there after the big fight. He grumbled, but it gave him an out. He could tell his pals. He wanted to kill him, but for the sake of the picture. Clouse's initial problem on Game of Death had nothing to do with film. Here's what we had to do, he explains pleasantly. We had to placate Bruce's spirit. The day before they started, all the cast and crew went up to the top of the studio where a door had been opened overlooking the city. There was a Buddhist priest, several pots of incense, a whole pig was roasting, and fruits and vegetables. We all had to bow with clasped hands and make our gesture so that Bruce's spirit wouldn't cause us harm. How successful that gesture was is debatable. In a bizarre postscript several months after Game of Death's completion, one of its stars, Gig Young, committed suicide in New York after killing his young bride, Kim Schmidt, a script supervisor he met while making the film. That's probably the guy who was the second in command in the Game of Death. He used to snap his fingers and all that sort of stuff. You know, he had that cane. He tried to box Bruce Lee's character, but yeah, he broke his arms or something like that, broke his neck, whatever. What started the big problem we faced was trying to be credible, Clouse says, weary with just remembering. It was a terrible, huge, exhaustible job. We had to match clothes, match lighting, match makeup, which was very difficult because he would cut and stuff. It took a lot of fineling, maybe that's what it's supposed to say. If there are people who feel Orientals look alike, this film was made for them. As a finished product, Game of Death is cunning in places, awkward in others. It doesn't always work, but that it works at all is amazing. Sequences from earlier films, a flying leap from the Chinese Connection, a fight in the Roman Colosseum, yes, the Roman Colosseum, from Return of the Dragon, are cleverly worked into the plot, and in Clouse's words, snippet of Bruce are slipped in here and there to help camouflage the action. If anything, the whole package is reminiscent of the famous quotation of Dr. Johnson's comparing a woman preaching to a dog walking on its hind legs. It is not done well, but you are surprised to find it done at all. So if you like this short video on the article about Bruce Lee, then subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below, and we'll come back with you with an answer as soon as possible, or a reply. And then go share this video about this article with all your family, friends and others.